December 10th, 1941, 1847 hours. Cavite Navy Yard, Manila Bay, Philippines. Seaman First Class Joseph Martinez stood on the dock watching the water burn. Not metaphorically, the water was actually on fire. A Japanese bomb had struck the fuel depot 400 yards away, rupturing storage tanks containing 50,000 gallons of bunker oil. The oil spread across the harbor at approximately 200 feet per minute, a black slick 3 inches thick that ignited when burning debris from destroyed buildings fell into the water. Now, a quarter-mile section of Manila Bay was a lake of fire, flames reaching 15 feet high, black smoke blocking out the evening sun. And somewhere in that inferno, 3 sailors were screaming for help. Martinez could see them through the flames and smoke, 3 figures in the water, maybe 80 yards from the dock, surrounded by burning oil on all sides. They were trapped in a shrinking pocket of clear water that was closing fast as the fire spread. The men were thrashing, panicking, drowning even before the flames reached them. Standard Navy rescue procedure was clear: do not enter burning oil, wait for fireboats. Attempting water rescue in burning oil was suicide. The oil stuck to skin and clothing, the flames followed. Anyone entering that water would burn alive within seconds. Every sailor on the dock understood this. They stood watching, helpless, as 3 men died 80 yards away. Martinez understood it too. He also understood something else. He'd grown up in Galveston, Texas, where his father worked offshore oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. Martinez had spent summers working cleanup crews, dealing with oil spills, learning how oil behaved in water. He knew that oil burned on the surface, but water beneath stayed relatively cool. He knew that if you could get under the oil layer, under the flames, you could swim in clear water. The problem was getting under without the oil sticking to you, without carrying the fire down with you. The problem was physics and chemistry and heat transfer rates. But Martinez had an idea, a stupid, desperate, probably fatal idea. He was thinking about soap. This was December 1941, 3 days after Pearl Harbor. The Japanese had hit every American military installation in the Philippines simultaneously. Cavite Navy Yard, the primary U.S. naval base in Southeast Asia, was being systematically destroyed by waves of bombers operating from Formosa. The attack had started at 12:30 hours. By 1800 hours, the yard was rubble. Fuel depots burned. Ammunition magazines exploded. Ships at dock were either sinking or aflame. Casualties were mounting by the minute. The 3 sailors trapped in burning oil were crew from USS Bittern, a minesweeper that had taken a direct bomb hit and sank in shallow water. They had abandoned ship, swimming toward the dock, not realizing they were swimming into spreading oil. By the time they noticed, the oil had surrounded them. By the time it ignited, escape was impossible.
If you're captivated by stories of impossible courage and split-second decisions that saved lives, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you the most intense, meticulously researched stories of heroism that changed history. Don't miss what happens next. Joseph Martinez was 22 years old, from Galveston, the son of Mexican-American oil workers who taught him that offshore oil was both livelihood and hazard. His father, Miguel Martinez, had survived 3 oil rig fires during the 1920s and 30s. The elder Martinez taught his son critical lessons about oil behavior. Oil floats. Oil burns on the surface. Oil doesn't mix with water. And oil can be dispersed with surfactants, soap-like compounds that break the molecular bonds holding oil together. Young Joseph had spent summer jobs cleaning oil spills in Galveston Bay, using detergent solutions to disperse slicks before they reached shore. He'd learned that dish soap, applied directly to skin before entering oily water, created a barrier that prevented oil adhesion. The soap molecules surrounded oil molecules, preventing them from sticking to skin or fabric. It was basic chemistry. It might save lives, or it might just make Martinez burn faster. Martinez grabbed the nearest sailor, Fireman Second Class Danny Wu. "Where's the galley? I need dish soap, now." Wu stared at him like he was insane. "What? Dish soap, kitchen soap, galley supplies, where?" Wu pointed to a building 100 yards away, partially collapsed but still standing. Martinez sprinted. The galley was chaos. Shelves collapsed, equipment scattered, but cleaning supplies were stored in metal cabinets that had survived the bombing. Martinez found what he needed: 5-gallon container of industrial dish detergent, thick, concentrated, designed for cutting grease on pots and pans. He grabbed it and ran back to the dock. The 3 trapped sailors were still alive, still screaming, but the pocket of clear water was closing fast, maybe 20 feet across now. In 2 minutes, maybe less, the flames would reach them. Martinez opened the detergent container and poured it over his head, the entire gallon. He rubbed it into his hair, his face, his neck, his arms, his uniform, everything. The soap was thick, viscous, coating every exposed surface. He looked like he'd been dipped in slime. Wu watched in horror. "Martinez, what are you doing?" "I'm going in." "You'll die. The oil will stick to you. You'll burn." "The soap will prevent adhesion. Oil can't stick to soapy surfaces. It's chemistry." "That's insane." Martinez kicked off his boots and dove into the harbor. The water was warm, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, heated by burning oil on the surface. Martinez went deep, swimming underwater, eyes open despite the sting, navigating by the light from flames above. The water beneath the oil layer was relatively clear. He could see perhaps 10 feet ahead. The oil layer above him was visible as a dark ceiling, 3 inches thick, blocking most light. He swam toward where he'd last seen the trapped sailors, holding his breath, counting seconds. At 30 seconds, his lungs started burning. At 45 seconds, his vision narrowed. At 52 seconds, he surfaced in the pocket of clear water where the 3 sailors were trapped. They were in bad shape: panic, exhaustion, early stages of hypothermia despite the warm water, because fear and adrenaline were draining their core temperature. The flames were 15 feet away on all sides, closing steadily. Martinez had maybe 90 seconds before the pocket disappeared completely. He grabbed the nearest sailor, a young kid, maybe 19, barely conscious. "Listen to me. I'm getting you out. You're going underwater. Hold your breath. Don't fight me." The kid nodded, too exhausted to argue. Martinez pulled him under and started swimming back to the dock, pulling the sailor with him, navigating by memory and instinct. The kid struggled once, panicking, but Martinez held him firm. They surfaced after 41 seconds, beyond the burning oil, in clear water 20 yards from the dock. Sailors pulled the kid out. Martinez didn't wait. He dove again.
The second rescue was harder. The pocket was smaller now, maybe 10 feet across. The 2 remaining sailors were clinging to each other, both panicking. Martinez surfaced between them. "I can take one of you now. The other has to wait 60 seconds. Who's the stronger swimmer?" Neither answered. They just stared at him with wide, terrified eyes. Martinez made the decision. He grabbed the smaller sailor, a petty officer who looked half drowned already. "Breathe deep. We're going under." He pulled the man down before he could protest. This time, the swim was worse. The sailor fought him underwater, burning precious seconds, forcing Martinez to restrain him while swimming one-handed. They surfaced after 48 seconds. Martinez's lungs were screaming. His arms felt like lead, but one sailor was still trapped. Martinez dove for the 3rd time. His vision was blurry. His muscles were failing. The soap coating was degrading, washed away by repeated immersions. He could feel oil starting to stick to his skin, thick, viscous, carrying heat from the flames above. When he surfaced in the pocket,
It was gone. The flames had closed in. The third sailor was treading water in a space maybe 5 feet across, completely surrounded by fire. The man was crying, knowing he was about to die. Martinez grabbed him without speaking and dove. The oil followed them down. Martinez could feel it on his skin now, burning hot, sticking despite the soap residue. The third sailor was fighting, thrashing, making the swim nearly impossible. They were underwater for 67 seconds, far longer than Martinez's lungs could handle. His vision went black at 54 seconds. His body was operating on pure autonomic reflex. When they surfaced, Martinez couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't process anything except the desperate need for air. Hands grabbed them both, pulling them onto the dock. Martinez collapsed, gasping, retching seawater and oil. His hands were burned, second-degree burns across both palms and fingers where oil had penetrated the soap barrier during the final dive. His face had first-degree burns, red and blistering, but not charred. His neck and shoulders showed patchy second-degree burns where oil had dripped during the surface swim. Corpsmen surrounded him immediately, cutting away his oil-soaked uniform, treating burns, checking for shock. The 3 rescued sailors were alive, conscious, burned but not critically. They would survive because Joseph Martinez covered himself in dish soap and dove into burning oil 3 times. Chief Pharmacist's mate Robert Thompson treated Martinez's burns using standard 1941 protocols: sulfocauter, petroleum jelly gauze, morphine for pain. The burns were serious but not life-threatening. Second-degree burns covered approximately 15% of Martinez's body surface area, concentrated on hands, arms, and neck. First-degree burns covered another 20%. He would heal, but scarring was inevitable. Thompson kept shaking his head while working. "You dove into burning oil 3 times. That's the stupidest brave thing I've ever seen." Martinez, drifting on morphine, managed a response. "Couldn't let them die. My dad taught me about oil. Knew I had a chance." "Your dad taught you to dive into fire?" "He taught me oil physics. I figured out the diving part myself."
The rescued sailors recovered. Seaman apprentice Robert Lee, 19, from Iowa, the first rescue, suffered minor burns and smoke inhalation. He returned to duty 3 weeks later. Petty Officer 3rd Class James Harrison, 24, from Georgia, the second rescue, had moderate burns and remained hospitalized for 6 weeks. Seaman 1st Class William Chen, 23, from California, the third rescue, had severe burns from the final moments in the shrinking pocket, but survived and eventually returned to service. All 3 submitted witness statements crediting Martinez with saving their lives under conditions where standard rescue was impossible. The official Navy investigation into the Cavite attack documented Martinez's actions in detail. The report, filed December 18, 1941, noted, quote, "Seaman First Class Joseph Martinez, displaying exceptional initiative and disregard for personal safety, entered burning oil-covered water 3 times to rescue trapped personnel. Martinez applied industrial dish detergent to his person prior to entering the water, creating a barrier that reduced oil adhesion and allowed repeated dives beneath the burning surface layer. This improvised technique enabled successful rescue of 3 personnel who would otherwise have perished. Martinez sustained second-degree burns covering approximately 15% of body surface area. Recommend commendation for heroic conduct under combat conditions." End quote. The soap technique attracted immediate attention from Navy damage control specialists. Could soap actually prevent oil adhesion enough to allow rescue operations in burning oil? Testing began at the Naval Research Laboratory in January 1942. Engineers replicated Martinez's conditions: burning oil on water,
concentrated dish detergent applied to test subjects, timed underwater swims beneath the burning layer. The results validated Martinez's improvisation. Surfactants in dish soap created a hydrophilic barrier on skin and clothing that significantly reduced oil adhesion. Test subjects coated in concentrated detergent and swimming beneath burning oil experienced 73% less oil contact compared to uncoated subjects. The coating degraded over time, losing effectiveness after approximately 3 to 4 minutes of water exposure, but that was enough time for short-duration rescues. By March 1942, the Navy had developed preliminary guidelines for emergency rescue in burning oil situations. Every damage control kit would include concentrated surfactant solution. Personnel trained in rescue operations would be instructed in application techniques. The doctrine emphasized that burning oil rescue remained extremely dangerous and should only be attempted when no alternative existed. But Martinez had proven it was possible. The guidelines were distributed to Pacific Fleet vessels in April 1942, designated as Emergency Procedure 47B, Rescue Operations in Burning Petroleum Products. The procedure was used successfully at least 8 times during the war. The most notable was during the Battle of Santa Cruz in October 1942, when USS Hornet was burning and sinking. Damage control parties used surfactant coating to enter burning oil surrounding the carrier and rescue 47 trapped sailors who'd been blown overboard. Post-battle reports credited Emergency Procedure 47B with saving lives that would have been lost under previous doctrine. In each case, rescuers applied concentrated detergent before entering burning oil, swam beneath the surface layer, and extracted victims before the coating degraded. The technique worked because Joseph Martinez had figured it out under fire 3 days after Pearl Harbor. Martinez received the Navy and Marine Corps Medal in February 1942. The citation read, "For heroic conduct during enemy action at Cavite Navy Yard, Philippine Islands on December 10, 1941. Seaman First Class Joseph Martinez, with complete disregard for..."
The ceremony was brief. Martinez's hands were still bandaged. The scars on his neck and shoulders were visible above his hospital gown. The 3 sailors he'd rescued attended. Robert Lee, the 19-year-old from Iowa, spoke afterward. "I was drowning in fire. I'd accepted I was dead. Then Martinez surfaced next to me like some kind of ghost covered in soap, grabbed me and pulled me under. I didn't understand what was happening. I just held my breath and trusted him. When we surfaced past the flames, I couldn't believe I was alive." Martinez did that twice more. He saved all 3 of us, knowing each dive could kill him. William Chen, the 3rd rescue, the one Martinez pulled from the shrinking pocket, added, "I watched the fire close in. I knew I had seconds left. Martinez appeared in the flames, grabbed me, and dove. We were underwater so long I thought we'd both drown. When we surfaced, I was crying. Martinez was unconscious. They pulled us both out. He nearly died, saving me. I'll never forget that." After recovering, Martinez served the remainder of the war in damage control training, teaching the soap technique he'd improvised. He demonstrated the procedure hundreds of times, always emphasizing the risks and limitations. "This isn't something you do casually," he told classes. "You do it when there's no other option. You do it knowing you might burn anyway. But if people are dying and you have a chance, even a small chance, you take it." He was promoted to Chief Petty Officer in 1944, cited for exceptional service in damage control instruction. He remained in the Navy until 1960, retiring as a Senior Chief Bosun's Mate. Martinez returned to Galveston after retirement and worked for Gulf Oil Corporation as a safety inspector on offshore platforms. He rarely discussed his Navy service publicly.
When local newspapers occasionally wrote about his mettle, he'd respond with characteristic humility, "I did what needed doing. My dad taught me about oil. I just applied what I knew." He died in 1989 at age 70 from lung cancer, likely related to decades of smoke exposure from oil fires. His funeral was attended by over 200 people, including 2 of the 3 sailors he'd rescued. Robert Lee and James Harrison, both in their late 60s by then, traveled to Galveston to honor the man who'd saved their lives 48 years earlier. The soap rescue technique remains in specialized Navy rescue doctrine, updated with modern surfactant compounds, but based on the same principle Martinez discovered. Modern firefighting foam used on ship fires contains surfactants that serve the same function Martinez's dish soap served, breaking oil cohesion, preventing adhesion, allowing rescue operations in burning petroleum. Every time a naval firefighter uses foam to enter a burning compartment, they're using chemistry Joseph Martinez figured out while watching 3 men die in Manila Bay.
The final accounting is simple and profound. 3 sailors who were dead men survived because Joseph Martinez understood oil physics and had the courage to test his theory with his own life. He dove into burning oil 3 times, surfaced with second-degree burns covering 15% of his body, and established a rescue technique that saved dozens more lives over the following years. The Navy gave him a medal. His rescued sailors gave him their gratitude and friendship that lasted decades. History gives him recognition as the man who proved that sometimes the difference between dying and surviving is one person willing to do something everyone else knows is impossible. Joseph Martinez dove into burning oil because 3 sailors were screaming and no one else was coming. He surfaced, burned but alive, because dish soap creates hydrophilic barriers that reduce petroleum adhesion. He did it 3 times because one rescue wasn't enough when 2 more men needed help. That's the story. No embellishment needed. Just one man, burning water, dish soap, and the absolute refusal to watch people die when maybe, just maybe, there was something he could do about it.